quite some years ago, I remember, in the Western meditation groups, there was a kind of understanding going around that the Buddhist teachings, that the Buddhist practice is not based on faith, as most of the other religions and spiritual systems actually are, but that the Buddhist practice is based on wisdom, on deep understanding, on the First Noble Truth, the truth about unsatisfactoriness, which is our everyday experience. And I think it is true. But the question remains, how far is it true? Talking a lot about Sada, actually time to say also some reflections about Panya, which is the counterpart. To translate Pali word Panya into English with one word, I would probably choose knowing. But it covers many shades from information, knowledge, reflection, wisdom, insight, deep understanding. All that belongs to category of Panya. So the Buddhist teachings actually speak about three levels of Panya, three kinds of Panyas. The first one, Sutta Maya Panya, is the knowledge which we are acquiring from another people. Reading books, listening to MP3s, going to some lectures. Let's be clear that this one is already a very important part of the path itself. The first link of the Eightfold Noble Path is Samadhi, which means to have some kind of a proper understanding or orientation to take the right direction in our endeavors. And let's be clear that the original Buddha's path is a very specific, very unique kind of teaching. Very important is also the second level. Chintamaya Panya is the kind of knowing or knowledge which we are arriving at through our own reflections, through our own deep thinking, deep understanding. In the scriptures, this is usually defined as yoniso manasikara, reflecting about the underlying truth of the things, of the phenomena. And this is highly recommended by Buddha, indeed. There are some passages in the suttas when Buddha makes it clear that it is possible to arrive at the stages of enlightenment by that. But to be honest, the greatest importance in the teaching is given to the third level of Panya, Bhavana Maya Panya. And this is a kind of wisdom or insight we are arriving at by practicing and following the Eightfold Noble Path. Not only the intensive meditation, any part, any progress on the Eightfold Noble Path, any significant progress, let's say. So, wisdom or insight. Personally, I understand insight, especially the high level of insight, that it is the work of Sada with Panya together, that they are leading the mind to the liberating opening. But in the scriptures, let's be clear that insight is also belongs to the category of Panya. Panya Vimuta, liberated by insight. But let's take first the wisdom. It is not the same. Wisdom and insight is not exactly the same. Of course, we have Western kind of wisdom, very much in the philosophy or like that. But the Buddhist wisdom has always very specific flavor. The Buddhist wisdom has always some relation to the three universal qualities of everything which is conditioned, everything which is subordinate to the time flow. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Yeah? These are three crucial universal qualities very much emphasized in the Buddhist teachings. Impermanency or changeability, instability. The second, unsatisfactoriness, imperfection of everything conditioned, and a kind of a hollowness, emptiness of selfhood. The third is quite a strong one, quite a difficult to grasp by logic. We can speak about it another time. So the Buddhist wisdom always has some relationship to this underlying truth. Generally, what I would say about wisdom is it has something to do with the life experience, because what we call wise, that person can overcome the division by time, the beginning and the ending of things and events. Usually they are lying apart, but with the life experience, these things are more in the memory. Knowing how the things are beginning, knowing how they come to the end. Wisdom for me means like to see the both sides of the coin at the same time. And this would be actually valid even for the Buddhist wisdom. So now to say something about insight. The first thing which comes to my mind, to make it clear that insight is not thinking. Insight is an intuitive opening to the deeper layer of truth, deeper layer of reality. It's true that the process of thinking can lead to an insight, that wise reflection, the yoniso manasikara, can trigger an insight, but the moment of this opening, that's just a moment beyond concept. It's a seeing, it's a kind of a new perspective, new seeing. Something we can imagine if we have lived in quite a long time in a kind of a corridor, shadowy corridor, and then we notice, oh, there is a door. We open the door into a big hall. This sudden shift of perspective. We can even look back into the corridor, but even then those things will appear in a different light. So, pointing out this specific characteristic of insight. On the other side, also wanting to make clear that the insights will be gradually built up. That's the usual way how it happens in the reality. Then there is a gradual path towards the opening. It reminds me a little bit of the Zen situation between the Rinzai Zen and the Soto Zen, the sudden enlightenment and the gradual enlightenment. So who is right? Well, both. There is a kind of a gradual build-up of the situation, and the opening is a sudden event. So, making it clear that there are different intensities of insights, that's quite an important point actually. But also making clear that there are many kinds of insight. There are liberating insights to some extent which are not really connected to the Buddha's path. So not really giving much attention to that. There are preparatory insights. In the beginning of the practice, usually quite a number of psychological understandings reveals to the mind why I am like this, why the things are as they are, and so on. Lokia, insights. If we should speak about the insight, about the specific insights which are actually lying in the direction of Buddha's liberation, Buddha's path towards liberation, again, similarly like wisdom, insights which are related to the three universal qualities of everything conditioned. These are the insights about anicca, dukkha, anatta. Quite interesting is the truth that about the half of the correct insights actually are very difficult things to swallow, especially for the ego. Because these are the insights which are taking down our illusion. So these insights are actually classified as quite important insights which are helping to detach from the root of problems. So making it clear that actually this kind of experiences, even in our life, have a specific role. They want to teach us to detach from things which are causing the suffering. Quite important thing to see, especially for people who are already on a spiritual path, that the difficult chapters of our life have some purpose to teach us the other side of the things. In the Four Noble Truths, actually the cause of suffering, cause of unperfection and unsatisfactoriness, that's the second Noble Truth, the Tanha, which translated into English means something like thirst, desire, attachment. So why to speak about insight? I think you know it. Don't be attached. Let go of your attachments, of your desires. Good advice indeed. It may work very well in the field of our consciousness, of the things we are conscious of, but very difficult in the roots of the problem, because these roots are beyond the field of our consciousness. We don't feel it, we don't know it. And the roots of attachments are there. In the scriptures it is called the area of asavas or anusayas. And this is exactly where the insight should work. Insight we can also understand as a direct confrontation with the reality as it really is. Not as the reality appears to us, not as the perception is presenting the things to us, but as the things really are on their own. And this is usually such a kind of shock for the ego that the detachment happens as a logical sequence. So, speaking about dire things along the spiritual path being important, let's be also just and make it clear that also joy is extremely important in our practice on our spiritual journey. But if we look into the scriptures, what Buddha is recommending, which kind of joy? It is a kind of joy which comes from purity of mind, joy of sharing, joy of giving, joy of the Brahma Viharas, of the loving kindness, or of the emotional equanimity of the mind, the joy of deep concentration, this extreme purity of mind, or the joy of wisdom, joy of compassion, joy of fulfilling the heart, joy of detachment. So Buddha is clearly pointing towards the sources of pure joy, which is free of attachments. Buddha would not really recommend sensual joys, which are the usual source of our life, amusement. A little bit between is the joy which we can get from artistic experiences, which in Buddhism, in the original Buddhism, is not acknowledged. In the later forms of Buddhism it may be appreciated. To end up this long talking, returning to the initial quest, when the modern Western teachers would point out that the Buddha's teaching is not based on faith, as another religions mostly are, but on reality, on our everyday experience, or on wisdom. Is it true or not? Well, it is true, but something is missing. You know, talking about saddha, the trust or faith, and panya, the deep understanding, the deep knowing, insight. So again, even in the base of the Buddhist teaching, the faith is a very important factor, and again, making it clear that these two have to work together so that we can experience the blessings of Buddha's path as soon as possible.